Hey, everybody. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm here with my co-host, JC.
Wendy Sellers, the HR lady. It's a pleasure to be back here. You know, we had a conversation on one of these programs in the open at one point in time, how you actually got that trademark for it, the HR lady. I still wonder, though, and I have to ask this question. Is it on your driver's license that way yet?
Yeah, it is. No, it's not.
It should be. It should be. Legally change that name, Wendy Sellers.
It's also funny because you would think that the is THEE, but it's really the HR lady. But I just really like the way the HR lady.
Oh, it's strong. It's strong.
And a reminder, nobody else can use that because I have 2 trademarks on it. Anyway, hey, want to talk about sandwiches?
I love sandwiches. I really do. But I kind of dislike being sandwiched. And I'm going to tell you, like I relate with our topic today.
Generation is what I'm talking about here. We have with us today an amazing guest, an author, speaker, podcaster, and a licensed educational psychologist, Christy Byrne Yates. Hi, Christy.
Hi, how are you guys? It's nice to be with you.
Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. We want to hear from you about, empowering the sandwich generation of parents, caregivers, and educating the employers about all the responsibilities that these people have. So, talk to us a little bit first about you and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. Well, I got there because I went there, right? I was raising my kids. They were teen and tween. And then I had both parents who were starting to age and we were caring for them. And then both were diagnosed with some form of dementia. My mother had Alzheimer's. My dad had vascular dementia. And I was in the thick of the sandwich generation. And working full time as a school psychologist in a school district. So I had everything going on. And that's pretty much what the sandwich generation is. It's just a time period. It's not forever, but it's a big impact on everyone. And after my parents passed away, I really took some time to take a look at my journals, pull some things together. I wrote a book because I felt that there wasn't enough there for me. There was a lot about what to do for your parents, but very few people were talking about the impact on you as a parent, how that impacts your parenting when you're caring for people who need you so much. So that's really the piece that I bring to the conversation and have lately been doing a lot of work with employers because guess what? Most of us are working and we have employers who might not know how to support us. And a lot of what we find is a lot of people don't disclose that they are caregiving for a number of reasons.
Yes. So let's go ahead and, talk about that. How can companies set up assistance to their employees and future employees as well, or heck, at a minimum, even educate their managers on the laws and what laws are we even talking about?
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And I'm so glad we're talking about this. I think number one, it's for HR departments or even I work with a lot of employee resource groups. So that sometimes comes out of HR, oftentimes comes out of more DEI pieces of an organization. So maybe a parenting group or a caregiving affinity group. But it's really making it safe for employees to disclose that they might have other caregiving responsibilities. One way you might do that is by offering some educational roundtables at times, lunch bunches, or query your folks. Would you like an ERG, an employee resource group around this topic, and how can we support you? It could be finding local and national resources that you could list on an intranet so that people can find what's necessary for them. I definitely think we need to talk more about and educate our managers more about FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. And that applies to any company that has 50 or more employees. There's a number of things, but 50 or more employees, or they are a federal or state agency. So there's a number of things in there. And there's lots of ways you can use FMLA. I took advantage of FMLA. It was really important for me to take some time with my mom when my father passed away first, and then I was with my mom the last month of her life. And that was really important. And I needed that break. That was really important too.
Yeah.
In 2022, approximately 23% of U.S. adults were part of the sandwich generation, meaning they had a parent age 65 or older and were either raising a child under 18 or supporting an adult child financially. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean that's the reality of life these days. And as humans are living longer, somebody has to take care of them. And then unfortunately on the other end, the young end is children, no matter what age, can't afford to live on their own. So you may have, your parents or elderly adults living with you, even if they're not your parents, and then children on the other end, and you're in the middle losing your mind.
Exactly. And the thing about with employers, everybody in a company at some point in their life has a parent, right? They may not all be still living, but your CEO could be in the sandwich generation. And even your frontline person could be in the sandwich generation. So it's a commonality of life, right? And it doesn't affect everybody because not everybody has children. And not everybody has their parents anymore. So there's a lot of different, so it isn't everybody, but for those people, it is pretty impactful and intense for a number of years.
Yeah. And the other thing that, I wanted to mention, not just about like the Family Medical and Leave Act, but also, there's ADA age,
Right.
With disabilities. Maybe your manager, your employee doesn't have a disability, but their family member might. So even though it might not be legally required,
Right.
assuming they're not, their full-time caregiver by law, then I don't know about this thing called retention, employee retention. It's so hard to attract and retain people. And when companies go, I don't know what to do. And it's like, how about think outside the box and be flexible with your, time schedule, your PTO, your benefits?
Exactly. And I think that you will also find, and what we're finding, I was part of a mastermind that did a focus group with a number of HR leaders across the country from a number of high profile companies. And we interviewed them. And a lot of them said, our caregiver employees, they are sharp. They're sharpening their saw as they're going through this time period, right? They're becoming better advocates. They're learning lots more about time management. They're very dedicated and they want to go to work. And so companies that support caregiving employees can sometimes find on the other end employees who are really, really loyal, who are ready to use these new skills in different ways. It's just a matter of the employer and the employee kind of coming together and negotiating and talking about what this looks like. What do I need? How can I do this? And it's important for the employee to be ready to say, this is what I need.
Right.
As it is for the employer to maybe be ahead of the game and be thinking, what can we provide?
Right.
In the United States, approximately 53 million adults serve as family caregivers, with 61% employed full or part-time. Balancing work and caregiving responsibilities often results in reduced work hours, taking leaves of absence, or even leaving the workforce entirely. There's a big time commitment there, isn't there, Wendy?
Yeah, absolutely. Sandwich generation caregivers spend 22 hours per week on elder care and 28 hours on childcare. That's a lot to put in one person's responsibility, or even if it's two persons' responsibility. And on top of that, 61% of them are employed. Oh my goodness. We definitely need to support them as employers.
Yeah.
Christy, what's your, pieces of advice that you can give employers right now? 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice that you can say, this is what you can do tomorrow to support your sandwich generation employees.
Right. I'd say number one is finding a mechanism to query staff. Say, we want to support caregivers, finding a way to do that where it's maybe low level of risk. Here's a questionnaire. It could be something very simple, like I said, providing some very simple stuff on an intranet or in a break room, that sort of thing. it's entertaining different kinds of work structures. You talked about job sharing. I think you mentioned that. It could, but not everyone can do that. I think remote work, when you can do it, it's negotiating those time things, because when people do have to leave the workforce and then when they want to come back, they may not be able to enter at the same place they left. And so that's a real difficult time for caregivers. Like, do I leave? I don't know. I won't be able to come back at the same level. And it's a difficult time. So I do feel like first you have to query people, really investigate that and make it safe for people to share that. Not that, oh, now we're going to micromanage you and see how many phone calls you make at work.
Yeah, it totally is. I think we were talking about that offline about like the job sharing and things like that. But there's so many other things that companies can do to just be, creative. They can have part-time jobs with benefits, and the part-time doesn't need to be 20 hours. It could be, 28 hours. It could be 32 hours. They could have full-time jobs. They could do job sharing, work sharing. They could also have people that are in the sandwich generation who are like, hey, we can't lose them. Well, maybe they're not producing a product or a service, but they're training people. So there's a little bit more flexibility, or they're a job coach or something like that. So they're a little bit more flexible in their day-to-day arrangement while still being productive and effective to the company. Because the worst thing could be, all this stress. I just did a training on stress today, all this stress, and that the employee says, I can't take it. I can't deal with my family life and my work life. And then you're not just losing an employee, you're losing all of that knowledge that walks out the door with it. And on top of that, an employee who really made a difference to your organization.
Well, and I think that that's the piece, Wendy. I think that really looking at your employees as valuable people in your company and looking at how can you try to retain them and negotiate. It could be things where you're moving from more of allowing people to do more project-based work. Like, it doesn't matter what time I turn this in, but here's my deliverables, and I'm getting them done in a week, but maybe I'm doing them all day on a Wednesday because I know all day Thursday and Friday I'm going to be in the hospital when my parents getting, infusions for cancer drugs or something. So it's being creative, like you said. I do feel like you can start the conversation without having to address one employee by employee, having some lunch bunches, having people come in and talk about some ways to support caregivers, and having community resources available for people to investigate.
Organizations that offer caregiving support report a 60% increase in employee retention and a 50% improvement in workplace productivity. Back to you.
It's so, so true. And I think that's what Christy has been trying to tell us here. So, hey, Christy, you mentioned a book. What's the name of your book?
So I wrote a book called Building a Legacy of Love, Thriving in the Sandbox, paperback and also Audible. And you can get that on Amazon or really wherever you can find online bookstores, it'll be available.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And how can our listeners connect with you?
So best way to connect with me would be through my website, and it's ChristyYates.com, and that's ChristyYates.com. And you can find me there. I also wrote a piece for an organization called The Conversation Project, and it's just that. That's the URL right there, The Conversation Project. And I wrote a blog there about how employees can start conversations with their employer.
I love it. It's so, so important. Well, thank you so much for this. Before we wrap up here, I just wanted to share with everybody a new announcement from the HR lady. I have released a learning management system, and that was about 3 months ago. And then I re-released it just recently, where you can get access to individual courses on demand. You can just go to my website, thehrlady.com. But here's the kicker. If you're after a snooze fest or just here for SHRM or HRCI credits, just keep scrolling because you're not getting them. Sure, you'll get a certificate as an insider access member, but I just decided I'm not wasting time or money on courses that focus on credits over content, and nor should you. My trainings are for HR and management courses. They're for people that are really want to roll up their sleeves, get stuff done, and do not have time for long-winded, overdrawn courses. So check it out. They are super quick. Most of my courses are under 30 minutes. No fluff, no BS. all action. And right now they are starting at only $27. So with that said, we hope this information has been helpful. Thanks for joining us and take care.